and thrilled to be joined by our guy, Dr. Carlos Rodriguez, for our weekly Evara Health Injury Report. Doc, so great to see you, buddy. How are things?
Pretty good. How are you doing? Nice suit.
Thank you, my friend. I'm rocking the purple today. Tampa Bay Lightning in action here at the Benchmark International Arena. Very excited for their matchup against Edmonton. You coming to the game tonight, Doc?
I will be there, yes.
Oh, it's going to be a good one, man. Connor McDavid. Have you ever seen Connor McDavid in person before?
I don't think I have, no.
Oh, my goodness. Watch number 97 on the Edmonton Oilers. He's the best player on the planet. And the way that he skates, for a guy like yourself who really understands athletics and the movements of the body, watching number 97 do what he does. He's bigger. He's faster. It's a sight to see, man. Just being able to watch that guy do his thing is certainly a treat. Buccaneers, Lightning dealing with injuries. I mean, I just mentioned Doc. Victor Hedman's going to be out for a while. He's on IR. Ryan McDonough is out. Max Crozier's out. Eric Chernak is out. I mean, it's been kind of crazy that the Tampa Bay Lightning have been able to play so well with guys, being out of the lineup. And I didn't put this in our notes, but I wanted to ask you real quick. Nick Paul's returning to the lineup. We spoke about the wrist injury. This is kind of the timeline, right, Doc? We said November of him being out, and I heard him speaking to some of our other guys before. He goes, guys, I could shoot the puck, but I wasn't very accurate. And you have to make sure that not only are you going to be okay if somebody kind of slashes you or bumps you, but you got to be able to shoot the puck and be able to be accurate. Right. This is kind of right where we thought the timeline would be, right, with Nick Paul?
Right. And that's exactly what they talked about before at the beginning of the season is like timeline for him to return. They were targeting mid-November as a return time. And I think probably he has been playing and practicing for quite a little bit now. And as he mentioned, he's trying to get more accuracy. He's trying to get back into game shape. But this is right on as far as what the timeline was set for him to come back from that injury to the wrist.
Jamel Dean is another big name for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And listen, this is a guy that he's played really well this year, but they've been managing his snaps. And I think part of the reason why they've been managing his snaps is because of the contract and knowing what the future holds and wanting to get some of these younger guys. But I think also because these guys have a propensity of getting injured too. And now he's dealing with a little bit of a hip injury. This for a guy that's got such a change of motion. When you're looking at a corner, because they change direction so much, running forward, running backwards, I mean, having a hip injury is probably one of the worst things you could have, right, Doc?
Oh, absolutely. And if you think back, he actually injured the hip. And I don't know if this is the same hip, but he injured the hip against the Eagles earlier in the season. And now he came back against the Bills and played 2 defensive snaps and re-injured the hip. So not sure if this is a new hip injury or is it a recurrence of the hip injury he suffered against the Eagles. My thinking is it's probably a recurrence of the same injury, which is now reported as a hip flexor strain. So basically it's muscles in the front of your hip. Or the muscles basically help you raise your leg up, and especially important in running and cutting. So most injuries, mild injuries, 1 to 2 weeks when it comes to recovery time. Severe injuries is usually 3 to 6 weeks. My thinking is he had the hip flexor injury, took some rest, was doing okay, now came back, re-injured it. So hopefully he's not dealing with that now, a more severe injuries that's going to put him out a longer period of time. There is a really high recurrence rate with this type of injuries. So not surprised that he may have tweaked it again.
How does that feel? I'm trying to figure, is it more of a strain, a sore, or is it like a sharp pain? What does that hip flexor strain feel like?
Probably a combination of all that, because you're going to have sharp pain whenever you go to cut and whenever you're going to run and take off, the muscle's going to fire. So it's going to have a sharp pain, and then probably in between, you're going to have a dull ache that is going to be present there. But it's really the sharp pain as you're trying to move and make a quick move that really affects you because it stops you.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you real quick about there's an illness going around with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with so many guys being out and 6 players on the injury report yesterday, 15, I think, of the coaches. I don't know if you know this answer, but as far as protocols go, and maybe this is something we possibly learned through COVID, do you get in situations, is it a quarantine situation? You keep guys home because it's such a unique thing, right? Where it's one thing if your kids are at school, or it's one thing if it's something that's going around your house, but we're talking about something where you're dealing with 53 players and dealing with probably over 100 people. What's the protocol, if you know, as far as what an NFL or any professional sports team does in a situation like this?
It all depends on what illness you're dealing with. So, I mean, most commonly, say the flu or the common cold, or maybe even the strains of COVID that are going right now, which are basically like the flu or the common cold. They're not the strains of COVID that we saw at the beginning of the pandemic. That was a high mortality and high morbidity rate, high illness rate. COVID these days is pretty much like a cold. It's pretty much like a flu. So if you're dealing with something like that, I mean, you do try to keep anyone that's severely ill, running fevers, away, because that's usually when they're more contagious. Uh, you try to practice as much as you can hand hygiene, cleaning the equipment, not sharing any water bottles. I mean, those are the things that are going to increase transmission rates. If you're dealing with a common cold and you're having a sniffle, mouth symptoms, I mean, washing your hands, make sure you're not sharing equipment, making sure you're not sharing water bottles with your teammates is the best way to prevent it. I mean, you can still play with a cold. It's not a big issue. We usually start looking at what we call below the neck symptoms. So when they start having severe chest congestions, chest problems, cough, production, fever, that's when we start going at limitation in play. But if it's just mostly a head cold, there's no limitation in play. And just practice safe, make sure there's no contagion going on or transmission.
Another guy that we've been looking for is Haason Reddick. I mean, this is a guy that he didn't practice again today, Doc. What do we know as far as the latest with him, and what if we could predict when we could see him back, because they sorely need him?
So he injured his ankle and his knee. He had an MRI done on his knee, which was clear. But then the report on the ankle was an ankle sprain. The fact that he's been out this long makes me think it's more of a high ankle sprain more than a regular sprain, because a regular ankle sprain would be back in about 1 to 3 weeks. He's been out longer than that. So my thinking is he has a high ankle sprain. I know the coach said immediately after the injury, we're glad he wasn't a mild injury, it was mostly a sprain, so nothing that would require surgery. When you're looking at high ankle sprains, usually a 4 to 6 week timeline for return to play. So maybe another week or two before we see him playing again.
Doc, what do you make of how the Buccaneers handle these injuries? Because I look at it and I wonder, because some people say, well, the training staff, and we've talked about this, can't really blame the training staff, but when you see how the Buccaneers handle these injuries, are they more cautious than other teams, if you could compare them, or do they seem like do they rush guys back? Like, I'm trying to gauge of how they handle injuries from your expectations, because you think, like we talked about the George Springer injury, like there's no way that guy can play, but it was pain management. You can see how injured he was. When you watch how the Buccaneers have dealt with the injuries this year, does it seem like they've been kind of sticking to the timeline that you expected?
Yeah, I mean, most of the time you stick to the timeline. It's actually keeping the player from wanting to come back earlier is the big fight that you usually have with players. Players immediately feel like, I'm ready, I can go. And you have to be the one being a little more conservative, saying, hey, there's a higher risk of re-injury if we come back too early. So let's wait another week or two. Let's put you through practice, put you through drills to make sure that you are indeed in game shape before we put you out there. So when you look at the timelines with a lot of these injuries, yes, they're right on. I mean, when we were talking about the hip flexor strain before, he did wait a couple of weeks before he came back. And that's usually the timeline for a hip flexor strain. I mean, the fact that this injury has high recurrence rates, it happens again. And now you got to be a little more conservative now before the next return to play. So as far as the ankle sprain with Reddick, I think we're right on the timeline as far as it being a high ankle sprain. If it's more of a mild to moderate high ankle sprain, 4 to 5 weeks out, it's right on track. So I don't think there's been any issues as far as getting them back too early.
Michael Penix Jr. is a guy that we've kept a close eye on him because he's a kid from the Tampa area, and we see him playing for the Atlanta Falcons within the division. And now, they were hoping it wasn't an ACL, and now it's an ACL. Is that just this kind of the standard thing, Doc, where they had to wait for the swelling to go down to figure out what was going on? And what do you think the recovery time is going to be for him? Because for a young man, he's dealt with a lot of injuries in his young career.
He has. Initially had a bone bruise, but I don't think this is the same knee. So now he suffered a partially torn ACL in his left knee against the Panthers. He had 2 ACL tears in his right knee during his college career, and also had 2 shoulder injuries. So he's had 4 season-ending injuries while in college. So now this is another season-ending injury. Most recovery from an ACL, because they're going to go ahead and repair it. Because when you're looking at an elite athlete like this with a partial tear, it's just a matter of time before it completely tears. In person like us who's not in a professional sports, we would say, let's go ahead and keep an eye on it. If it tears, then we'll tackle it. In a professional football player, especially a mobile quarterback like Penix, you want to go ahead and fix it because it would be just a matter of time before he tears it up. So it's usually 9 months to a year recovery time after an ACL repair. Usually you're looking close to 10 to 12 months. So the beginning of the season next year is going to be a little tenuous. I don't know that he'll be back before the end of the season. Maybe you're looking more at mid-season before he returns next year.
Doc, this is kind of random because when we talk, I things come into my brain that I've been wondering for years. I'm sorry for being on a tangent sometimes, but there was an injury to a pitcher from the Yankees years ago, Masahiro Tanaka, and they said that he tore his UCL in his elbow, and he never got surgery. And he went away and went back to Japan in the offseason. He came back. He wasn't throwing 97, 98 anymore, but he was throwing 91. But he never got surgery, even though it said that he had a partial tear of his, his UCL. Have you heard of anything like that where guys were able to not go under the knife and just kind of like mitigate the damage in a way? And again, we don't necessarily know what he did over there. It could have been some Eastern medicine that we don't know about. But have we ever heard of anything like that? Or is it more of a case of what we hear with Michael Penix, where it's like, hey, it's a partial tear, man. If you don't go under the knife, it's just inevitable.
Yeah, so it's the same thing. You're running the risk, right? So if you partially tear the ligament, there's less structure there to support it. Now, the fact that he wasn't throwing as hard coming back from that injury makes you think it wasn't as effective because there's some instability going on because of the stress on the ligament not being completely there. And maybe you were just waiting on the fact that you just want him to be able to see, can he perform maybe at some level that we're comfortable with him performing. And if he tears it, then we tackle the surgery. With the ACL is such a high deal of stress, especially someone as with the running and the cutting, that when you're looking at the partial tear, it really will be just a matter of time before it tears in a play. And again, most ACL injuries are not impact. It's just you're just planting your foot, make the wrong cut, and the ACL can go. So it's one of those things that is better, I think, in this case, especially in a professional, mobile, young quarterback like Penix, to go ahead and repair it and then having rehab and having come back next year rather than putting him out there, tearing it even later in the season. Now he has a tear. Now he misses not just the rest of this season, but probably the next one too.
Right. And a lot of injuries to the quarterbacks right now in the NFL, and we see Aaron Rodgers in the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they didn't really need him at the end of the last game after beating the Bengals. But what do we know about Aaron Rodgers as far as what his availability is going to be for Sunday and beyond?
So he fractured a wrist bone in his non-throwing hand, which is a good thing. Now, the main thing is you want to make sure that if you brace it and you stabilize it, is he able to take a snap? Not just under center, but is he able to take a long snap? Is he able to grab the ball and grip the ball comfortably that he can then prepare to do a throw? So I don't know that he will play this Sunday because the fracture just happened last Sunday. There's swelling. There's an increased amount of pain there. I don't think he's been practicing at all this week so far. So I don't expect him to be there Sunday, but maybe after that, swelling goes down, pain is a little more tolerable. I mean, and a guy with Aaron Rodgers, I wouldn't worry about pain tolerance. He's probably going to say, I'll play with the pain. I mean, that's the kind of guy he is.
Yeah.
He's really tough, but it's a matter of, is he going to be effective? Is he going to be able to grab a snap, whether long or under center, and then be able to throw the ball well? And then more importantly, is he able to protect himself if he gets sacked in such a way that he's not going to aggravate that wrist and make it worse? So they got to look at what kind of brace could he wear that would be comfortable to play, but offer a good degree of protection in case he gets sacked.
Yeah, it's a great point because people think, oh, yeah, he can throw with his other hand. It's like, it's more than that, buddy, because people are going to target that as well. Before we get back to football, I want to ask you about LeBron James. He makes his return to the Los Angeles Lakers, and they said he was dealing with sciatica. And I think it's kind of crazy. We don't really hear that much, and people are like, oh, it's just sciatica. And I go, we don't hear that very often. And I go, yeah, well, we also don't see 40-year-olds playing in the NBA very often either. I mean, it's not really an injury that we discuss too much in sports, is it, Doc?
Well, I think it's we talk about low back pain and herniated disc and you got to think the sciatic nerve originates in your lower back.
Right.
So it's not just a nerve that comes out your hip area. It originates in the lower part of your lumbar spine to the sacral area. And that's the most common area where herniated discs happen. And LeBron is 40 years old. He's been putting his body through a lot of stress, playing a lot of basketball, a lot of time in the weight room. So most commonly, sciatic issues are due to herniated discs in the lumbar spine. So that's probably what he was dealing with. Is a herniation that was causing pressure on one of the branches that makes the sciatic nerve, which is going to cause radiation of pain, numbness, sometimes even some weakness in the lower extremity. So you're dealing with discomfort, trouble walking, trouble moving, trouble bending over. And we know if you play basketball, a lot of the times you're in a crouching position when you're defending or dribbling.
Mm-hmm.
So not surprised that it's taking time for him to come back. Most of those injuries don't need surgery. Rehabilitation, therapy, strengthening, 95%, close to 90% of folks will get better usually within 3 to 4 months without any surgery. He missed about 14 games, which is a period of about 6 weeks or so. Most people can improve in 2 to 8 weeks. Second most common reason why people get sciatic nerve issues is usually piriformis syndrome or inflammation at the sciatic nerve. And that's more local. That's more at the butt cheek area, hip area where there's pressure in the sciatic nerve by either the muscles or just inflammation. The third one is trauma, but we know he hasn't been in a car accident or anything like that to be traumatic. So it was either a disc herniation or just local inflammation and pressure from the muscles in the area. And in either case, it's time before it gets better.
Doc, one of the things that we've talked about with LeBron over the years is the amount of money that he puts into his self-care, right? And millions of dollars over the years. And Tom Brady, obviously, and I think CeeDee Lamb from the Dallas Cowboys just said that he spends over $1 million a year on his body. What do you think of professional athletes? And of course, when you have the money, right, you want to be able to make sure your body is a temple. You're a fine-tuned machine. I don't want to say how smart is that, but is it surprising that more athletes don't do it? Because it seems like if that's your money maker, you want to make sure that you take care of yourself. When you hear that as a medical professional, that guys spend that kind of money, do you think it's an overabundance of finances? Do you think it's spot on? Like, what do you think when you hear things like that?
It all depends on boils down to what are they doing. Are they investing on healthy nutrition habits? Are they investing on therapy? Are they investing on exercise routines, physical trainers, athletic trainers? Are they investing in improving their body physically, nutritionally? Those would be great ways to invest, and not just for athletes, but for anybody to make some lifestyle changes to increase the durability and the performance of your body. So when they're spending money that way, I think that's absolutely great. One thing you have to be mindful of, sometimes they may start spending money on things that are either experimental or not proven, or things that you find on the internet, or maybe hearsay from a buddy or somebody that's telling you, well, take these supplements or take this or that. I think it works. That's what you have to be careful with, because any supplement or anything that you put in your body could have side effects, could have issues, or may actually not do anything for you. And you're spending all these amounts of money for really no benefit. So as long as they're doing adequate amount of research and what they're doing is scientifically and medically sound, I think anything that you do to improve your performance and improve the health of your body is absolutely fine.
Have you seen a rise in some of the misinformation because of social media?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of things out there on the internet. I mean, Dr. Google, there's all kinds of things on the internet. And I deal with that almost on a daily basis when I see patients, because they read information. And some information may be accurate. I mean, I'm not saying that everything you read is wrong. There's some information that is accurate. There's some information that is not. And it's just a matter of going through that information and telling them, this one is really based on good scientific evidence. This one's really more of a consensus or people experiences with it, but there's been no really trials on it.
That's the scary part. And, I have a good friend of mine that deals in peptides, and what is doctor's opinion? This is from Greg DeCruz down there in Costa Rica. What is doctor's opinion on peptides to improve health? I've seen a lot. There's a lot more people now with everything with, going from the weight loss stuff, but I've seen so many more people dealing with the peptides that have dealt with inflammation and all different things in their body. What are your experiences, and what have you heard as far as these peptides? Because it seems like it's kind of one of the more popular things we're hearing now.
Yeah, there are some peptides that can be effective. So again, do diligence, good amount of research. Now, if you have a balanced diet, you do obtain most of the nutrition, vitamins, peptides, amino acids, proteins in your diet. If you're doing some extreme dieting that is cutting out a good portion of nutritional value, then you have to supplement.
Right.
But when you look at a regular diet on a day-to-day basis, and a lot of these athletes have really modified big diets that are high in protein, high in carbs to make up for the fact that they're burning so many calories and so many proteins through the course of training and exercise and game time, that you have to modify their diets. As long as you have a balanced diet, do you need to really spend your money with all these supplements and peptides? Not really. Uh, your body, what does most of the time with those excess peptides, it just secretes them out. There's no storage area
Right.
for them. We do store certain vitamins because they're what we call fat soluble vitamins, and those can be stored. The rest of vitamins that are water soluble, pretty much your body just uses what it needs, and the rest goes out through the
Right.
kidneys.
Yeah, so it's like, all right, well, if you want to make sure that you take care of business, make sure your diet. A lot of it just comes back down to a healthy diet, doesn't it, Doc? I mean, I had that conversation with my dad. And that's what I think people have to kind of balance it out, right? If a healthy diet is not the priority, then maybe you got to find other ways to go about it. But if you're just smarter with what you put in your body when it comes to food consumption, that can really help you out. A couple more football guys I want to ask you before I let you go, Doc. Joe Burrow. Man, we've been without him forever with the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Flacco's done a great job of filling in for him. What do we make of Joe Burrow? Could we see him sooner rather than later?
So he had the grade 3 turf toe injury. So he did have surgery on it to fix the turf toe, which is basically he tore the plantar plate on his big toe. The surgery was about 8 weeks ago. Timeline for return post-surgery for a toe turf injury is usually 12 to 20 weeks. So we're not quite in that timeline yet. Now, they did activate him last week. He did some modified practices last week. I believe he did practice yesterday also.
Yeah.
So they could be bringing him in a little sooner on the timeline. Now, if I'm the Bengals, I'm thinking we're 3-7. It's a long shot to the playoffs.
Right.
Do we bring him back, risk injury, and then losing him for a longer period of time, or do we take our time, see how he does, bring him more towards the end of the season, just so he can take some game time, some snaps, and see how it behaves through the end of the season? But I don't know that you want to bring him in so early, especially when there's really no postseason right now. I think for the Bengals, I would be on the conservative side, bring him back, maybe 2-3 weeks before I would bring him back. But I mean, I'm not the physician there, and I'm not seeing him progress through practice or how well he's doing in practice. But my thought is closer to a 10 to 12 week post surgery, so maybe about 2-3 weeks before he comes back.
Jaxson Dart, quarterback of the Giants, he's already been checked for a concussion, I think, 4 times this year. I mean, it's so wild that, I mean, understanding that him running the football is one of the things that makes him great, but man, to be able to be checked that many times is not good. Do you think we see him this week? Do you think we see him again this season? It's kind of, if you again, you're a team that's at the bottom of the standings, is it really a great idea to rush this kid back, especially when there's so many changes within the organization? What do you make of Jaxson Dart?
So as you mentioned, this is the 4th time that he's been examined for concussion this season. So that's something that is worrisome, because we know that you get hypersensitive to concussions when you suffered concussions before. So the chances of you suffering another one after you've had several concussions goes up. So they're going to be, I think, pretty conservative with him. You have to put him through a concussion protocol anyway, which essentially entails rest period to begin with. Then once he's asymptomatic, not taking any medications for any symptoms, and he's completely asymptomatic, you put him through the return to play protocol, which usually takes about 4 days, where you do light exercise, motor exercise, sport-specific exercise, and then you put him through practice and make sure that he is asymptomatic through all of that. If he's asymptomatic through all of that, then you can clear him for game time at that point. So do I expect him this weekend? Probably not. I believe he's still symptomatic. I don't quite see that he's been on a full practice out. So he hasn't really completed the protocol. So maybe by next week he may complete the protocol. He may be without any symptoms and doing okay. But my concern would be the fact that he's had 4 concussions, we don't know if he fully had 4 concussions, but 4 injuries that were concerning 4 concussions. He has to be careful when he gets out of the pocket. He has to be careful when he's now running and taking a hit. So he has to be mindful of that for the rest of the season.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Doc, I was thinking about you over the weekend. One of the local travel baseball coaches got fired over the weekend because he let a pitcher throw over 200 pitches in one weekend. And his answer was, well, he only threw 120 in the playoff game. And the coach was like, he was future endeavored, and the organization let him go. And it was just, you feel good that he got let go, because it's just like, what are we doing, right? Like, I mean, I put such a stringent pitch count on my guys, but for a guy's retort to be, well, he only threw 120 pitches in this game, it's like, guys just don't get it, do they, Doc?
No. I mean, when have you seen a professional player throw 120 pitches in a game? I mean, if the pros don't do it, why would you put a 13, 14, 15-year-old or even younger?
The kid was 9. He was 9 years old, Doc. Oh.
Yeah. I mean, and again, with kids, the concern is the growth plates.
Right.
In adults, we'll tear the ligament and we'll fix the ligament. In kids, the growth plates can get separated, and the issue is you can stunt the growth of that plate, which can bring greater consequences for the child later on when it comes to elbow motion, ability to play sports in the future. Right. So you really have to protect the kids when it comes down to injuries, and you have to be mindful of overuse in kids. I mean, anywhere there's a growth plate, the knees, the elbows, shoulders, every single joint, there's growth plates that you have to be worried about. And the elbow, especially in a kid that is throwing, is a very sensitive area, and you don't want that growth plate to start separating, because it can have really big consequences later on. I mean, in the career, and a 9-year-old, again, throwing to 9-year-olds does not translate to when you're 18 and pitching to 18-year-olds. Right. I mean, it's completely different. The kids that are batting don't have the hand-eye coordination to hit the ball that well. So when you're 9, you look like a star when you're out there on the pitching mound.
Right. Ah, man, I was thinking about you. I was like cringing when I heard this information. I was like, oh my gosh. Doc, what are we doing? What are you doing for Thanksgiving next week? Anything good?
Oh, I usually, for the last probably 20 years, my family comes up to the house, and they all travel from Puerto Rico and from other areas to come spend the weekend with us. So it's a big family gathering.
Beautiful.
How about you?
I'll be in New York. So I leave. It's funny that you say that. I actually leave for Puerto Rico Saturday afternoon. I'm going to a wedding in St. Thomas. So I have to fly to Puerto Rico on Saturday, stay overnight because the layover is 17 hours. And then I leave in the morning to go to St. Thomas. The wedding is on Monday. And then Tuesday I fly up from Puerto Rico to New York for the holidays so I can spend Thanksgiving with mom and dad. And
let me know. We'll catch up later. And since you're going to be spending that much time in San Juan, maybe I'll give you some places you can go hit in San Juan.
Beautiful. You're the man. So no show next week. We'll talk to you in 2 weeks. Thanks, as always, my friend, for making our show a whole heck of a lot better. Have a great Thanksgiving. We'll talk to you in 2 weeks.
Same to you. Sounds good.
You got
Happy
it,
Thanksgiving.
Buddy. You too. The one and only.